Hey all, I'm Toby from Toby Fire and Steel. Today I'm going to do a little bit of resin casting. So we've done some stabilising of some Banksia pods. Now, if you guys are in the US, you might have no idea what this is. It's a seed pod that grows on a tree in Australia. I believe maybe Tasmania, but pretty much only Australia. So a mate of mine, another knife maker, Jazz, has asked me to cast this piece of, looks like mallee burl for him. He has pre-stabilised it. You can see by the shiny bits here that he's actually stabilised it already. We're just going to put a bit of black in here for him. So went to fit it in one of our moulds, realised, oh, it doesn't fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you quickly how to make a mould for a one-off use. And while we're at it, I'm also going to cast a couple of the Banksia pods in, and you'll see how I cast them as well. These have already been pre-stabilised as well, because look, if you're going to use them for a knife, everything should be stabilised really. There's really only a couple of timbers like Brigalow, such a dense timber, Gidgee, things like that can get away without being stabilised. Even then, there's no harm in stabilising them. So first thing what I do is I get some of this. This is corflute material for sale sign stuff. You can actually see, look, see that little bit of there? That's a piece of my hair. Once upon a time I was a real estate agent, and that. Alright, so here's what we do when you can't use your silicone moulds. If you want to see how these silicone moulds are made, put a little link just here showing you how I made these silicone moulds. You make them for free. Easy. I've used these maybe 20-30 times each. Beautiful. Never ever go wrong. That's 30mm, and for you Americans, best part of 1 1/4 inch. I'm not going to do US, you can convert it yourself because I suck at converting. I can do the inch and like 1 1/2 inch, but the 1/16 and the 1 1/8 and the 1/32 and I got to admit, you guys are smarter than me, that confuses me. 30mm high. I want it to be a good 50mm high because I want to fill it up knowing that if there's any sort of spills around the edges, it's still going to fill this section up. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to get my 50mm there. I'm going to use whatever pen is at hand, and right now it's a purple Sharpie. I'm going to mark 50mm. Now if you can get these to line up, there's ridges, there's like fine ridgy lines in here. If you can actually get your cut to line up through one of them, it's much easier because you just open it and just peel it open. Okie dokies. So same thing, we want at least 50mm on this end. But actually, more importantly to that, I want it to be squarish. Like, it doesn't have to be mental square. You can literally do this as rough as guts, and it'll probably be fine if you put enough tape on it. I just like it to be pretty neat. So what I'll do there is I'm going to lay that in. I'm thinking I'll probably put that much resin in, cast up to this sort of point here. So I'll just put another square line there. This is a one-time use thing, and we're using Alumilite, so it goes off really fast. If you're using liquid diamonds, this is not a good way of doing it because liquid diamonds takes a lot longer to go off. In fact, any resins that take like 16 hours, this isn't the best way of doing it, because you will find, which I have done a couple of years ago, that you come back to find you have a half empty casting because half of it's in the bottom of your chamber. When I say these are one-time use, I have used these a couple of times before, though they're not great for that. Like, I tend to use these when I'm doing like a big casting for something, and I've bid them, but there's been occasions where I've kept them and used them again when I know there's a second one and I'm not going to make a whole silicone mold for it. But actually, interestingly enough, when I made my silicone molds, this is how I did it, using this sort of system. Alright, so this is the fun bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut down, following the line. You only want to cut through, see the honeycomb? You want to cut through the first layer of the honeycomb and not the second one. Otherwise, you may just build it out of 5 separate pieces. Alright, so you see we haven't gone through that layer. So now we have our mould, which should, if I am not completely stupid, fit, which it does. I've done it before where I've left like little ears, like tiny little ears, like sticking off there where it's sort of, where I want it to like fold over and all, and it actually ends up becoming a pain in the butt. It sort of separates them off and all that sort of stuff. And I've found that just butting these together and gaffer taping them really is, especially for real temporary ones like this, the best option. All of the edges, just to try to stop if there is any quick like leakage in that first sort of 5 minutes before, as it starts to go off, before it jellifies. This helps to slow it right down. So sometimes when you pull this off, you will find like a little bit of Alumilite inside the tape, but I won't tell anyone if you don't. Right, there you go. So it's a bit ugly, but it doesn't matter. So I'll put that in. And what you can do to stop it, because it will try to float away, what you can do to stop it floating away is either put a screw in through the bottom and it just taps into the bottom of the wood a tiny little bit, or a little bit of hot glue on the bottom, a little bit of hot glue there, a little bit of hot glue, or even the tiniest bit of super glue. But before we do that, these will go in the oven. The reason for these going in the oven is because of the fact that they've been stabilised, but they're sitting in normal atmosphere, which means the actual surface area of all of these have moisture, a certain amount of moisture in it. And if you cast a block with any moisture in it, you will find this happens. So that white effect is really quite a nice pattern. It's a gorgeous block. It's a really good bit of timber. It's a gorgeous bit of burl with this sort of white line. That is where this was a stabilised block, and I had a bit of this left over. I mixed up too much. I was like, oh no, I've got too much left over. So I just picked up a block that I had stabilised. It was a hot day. I thought, oh, that'll be alright. Threw it in there, and it wasn't. It had moisture, which also means you can get, see the tiny bubbles? You can get tiny little bubbles. See, there's an actual white line following that edge all the way around. Now, I'll probably use this block for something one day, or I'll bin it, or I'll cut the tops off and use it as things, bolsters, or take that bit off and use it as bolsters or something. Who knows? Or if somebody wants it, let me know. In fact, there you go. If you're getting into knife making and you want a block to play with that's solid, it's not going to go anywhere, it's rock hard, it's just got a little bit of that whiting in it, this is yours. Send me a message, let me know. If there's heaps and heaps here, in fact, the first person to ask for it can have it. Let me know. I even put these on top of the oven just to warm them up a bit to make sure there's no moisture in them too. Alright, so we're going to tear the weight with a cup on it. So part, get one, child safety lock, which everyone knows I'm a bit of a child, so clearly in trouble. Part A, no sorry, that was part B, and this is part A. So I start by doing about half a cup because we know we're going to use a lot of this. So that works out about 200 grams for me. Because you don't want it to be like a full half a cup, because then you get a full cup and you can't actually mix the darn thing. So that's 205. Don't mix your lids up. Normally right on my lids, I'm not sure why I've done that. 205, and then I like to tear the weight again. Not that you really need to, you can just add it up. Now this is where timing starts to be a thing. Some people have a stopwatch, but I use Alumilite slow, so I know that, right, that's 207. Now 205, 207, that extra little tiny bit there isn't going to make any difference. If it was too much, I'd go back and I'd adjust it by putting a little bit more of the part B in. So now we're going to mix this thoroughly and quite quickly. So I'll start by mixing the middle up pretty much until it starts mixing through, and then you want to scrape the sides. I use the edge of the stick to really dig into the bottom corners and see if I can find every sort of facet of this thing. And I'm wearing gloves not because it can hurt me, but because of the fact that it can eventually hurt me. I have read and heard that you can develop an allergic reaction to epoxies, and the problem with that is allergic reactions are generally pretty rubbish. It means that every time you come in contact with them at all, they will affect you. So if you don't expose yourself to it much, you're less likely to ever become allergic to it. Right, now the trick here is I feel like I've got this really well mixed, and I can look at it and I can go, oh look, there's no streaks, can't see any little lines or anything like that, a few bubbles but no real streaks. So when I'm really happy with it and I think I've got it, what you do now, take another cup and you decant it all into another cup, because of the fact that you now know that you aren't basically you can't be transferring any of the unmixed stuff from the edges, and anything you scrape out that is unmixed is going to be dropping into like the middle of the cup, so you'll be able to mix it together. It's just like you don't have to do this. I've definitely done it before without doing this, but it's just a best case scenario. It's going to be blue. So this is a beautiful sort of pearlescent, brilliant blue mica powder. So technical term for the amount I'm putting in here is a crap ton. And now mix the crap ton in. Doing the same thing, scraping the sides. Sometimes you are better off putting a bit in, mixing it, putting a bit more in, mixing it, putting a bit more in, mixing it. You should be okay as long as you really make sure you've mixed it through well, and you sort of squish any lumps you find on the edge, like against the side, so that you know you've definitely squished them up, because the last thing you want to do is be cut into a block and find like a nice lump in it. Okie dokie. So I've had these sitting in the oven for a little while, so they're all warm, so we're not going to end up with anything having moisture in it. So then all I do is I pour this from one end to the other over the top of my Banksia pods, and you can actually hear the air in them starting to bubble. So now what I do with Banksia pods, because they're naturally going to have air in them, I actually turn them over a few times. In the pressure pot for 2 hours, maybe till tomorrow whenever I get around to get them out. They really only need to be in there for a couple of hours would kill it, because it's Alumilite. I think you can actually demold them after like half an hour, which I never do, but you probably could. But read the instructions. If you like this video, if you like seeing lots of different things to do with the knife making industry, some of them are handle stuff, some of them steel stuff, some of Damascus stuff, then a lot of interviews with incredible knife makers from Australia and around the world. Please subscribe, share it with your friends, and thanks very much. Uru.